Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, I guess that's what I get for starting before I was actually ready because I didn't even realize that my microphone wasn't plugged in. Yep. Okay, that's good. Um. Anyway. Okay. Now that that's all together, we are going to be continuing with My Twisted World. Where we last left off, it was just a bunch of whiny bullshit. Elliot had a mental breakdown at a birthday or at some sort of party when he was 16. Told his family how much he wanted to kill himself. I'm still a little sleepy. Oh, hey, Kate. But yeah, anyway, let's pick up where we left off at 17 years old. 1 second. Okay. And there we go. All right. Okay. Father told me that Max invited me to visit him in France for 3 weeks. I would have to travel there alone, and Max would pick me up at the airport near his hometown of Montpellier. At first, I was very anxious about it, and I was about to say no. Father talked me into it, saying that I was lucky to have an opportunity like this. I really missed Max, and I wanted to see him again, so I quickly made the decision to go. I left around the beginning of August. This was my first time traveling alone. This is my first time traveling alone, and excuse me. And I didn't know what to expect. Father signed me up to have supervised travel assistants to help me along the way, otherwise I would get lost in the airport. On the way there, I made a stop in Frankfurt, Germany to transfer planes. Germany became another country I can add to the list of places I've been. When I arrived at the airport in France, I waited for a few hours and finally Max showed up. I was really happy to see him. I couldn't believe I was actually in France again. Max and I stayed at his grandmother's house in Montpellier. Montpellier was an exquisite city, with a romantic and cultured vibe to it. It was such a pity that I was too caught up in my own world to truly appreciate it at the time. Max introduced me to his life in France. I met with some of his friends and we went to bars together. In France, the legal drinking age is 16, so I was able to drink alcohol at a bar. Oh boy, sign me the fuck up. It was astounding. For those 3 weeks, I had the faintest taste of what life was like for normal young people. The experience of hanging out with a group of young people, boys and girls, and enjoying life was something I never did before. It really turned my whole world around for that short amount of time. So this is what everyone else gets to experience, I thought to myself with jealousy. I felt a sense of happiness and bliss that I hadn't felt since childhood, when life was good. During the trip, we visited the town of Arles, I don't care if I butcher these names, where we stayed in the hotel that Max's family owns. Max told me of all the sexual experiences he had. Here we go. I never knew he had such an active sex life. The more he talked to me about it, the more envious I became. I questioned to myself why he got to experience such an amazing life while I had to suffer so much loneliness and humiliation. I was introduced to some of the girls he had sex with in the past, and they were all pretty. On top of that, his family was extremely wealthy, and they owned a sprawling mansion in the countryside. Where's the justice, I thought? Why couldn't I have been born into that life? You literally were! You were born into living in a fucking castle in the United Kingdom. Then your father made some shit decisions, and then boom, you're now in an apartment in California, but you're still having a good life, you fucking selfish bitch. Jesus fuck, dude. I envied Max so much. His life must have been heaven on earth. Despite my envy of Max, I couldn't hate him, at least at that time. He was the only popular young person who ever reached out to me. He invited me to visit his home, and he treated me like a friend. For that, I will always have a grudging respect for Max Bonin. After 3 weeks in France doing exciting social things, I returned to my lonely life in the US, where I became even more depressed than I was in the beginning of summer, especially after getting a taste of what life was truly like for normal people. I knew I could never live such a pleasurable life, and the knowledge haunted me. I was back to my routine of World of Warcraft. At least the new expansion was coming out soon, and I tried to look forward to that. When 12th grade began, I made a vow to finish high school before the month of March. The high school system at Independence allows students to work at their own pace, so the more extra work I did, the sooner I would graduate. Oh, that's pretty cool. I was always depressed and bored for the few hours a day I had to spend there, and I disliked all of the degenerate low-class students there. Okay, in one line, literally before this, he was saying, oh, why couldn't I have such a good life? And then he turns around and says, oh man, I'm stuck with all these dirty fucking peasants without an ounce of self-awareness. This is, oh my fucking god. Jesus Christ, dude. Without an ounce of self-awareness. Okay, where was I? They repulsed me. I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could, and it became my goal for the year. At the end of school time every day, I asked my teachers to give me extra homework assignments, and I stopped myself from playing World of Warcraft until I completed them. Oh, so much self-restraint, you know? Yeah. The second expansion for World of Warcraft finally released, called Wrath of the Lich King. When I got home from school, I wanted the game so badly. Mother wasn't home from work yet, so she couldn't drive me. I decided to walk all the way to Best Buy to pick up the game. It was a long walk that took almost an hour. On the way home, I was very hungry and stopped at Panda Express to eat lunch. Ew, why? Planet Cyber was right next to that Panda Express, so I walked in there for a few seconds to reminisce about better times before hurrying home to install the game. Once it was installed, James and I played it together all afternoon. Oh, Jesus Christ. Guys, you want to know how far we are into this? Right here. 56 out of 141 pages. We're only a little bit over a third of the way through this entire manifesto. And this is like, what, the fifth part of this that I'm doing? Oh my god. Okay. Okay. Let's get back to it. I found out that one of my teachers at Independence, Mr. Perales, also played World of Warcraft. From then on, the two of us would talk about the game every day. It was nice to have someone at school to talk to, and I enjoyed telling him about my daily progression with my character. This made my time at school a lot less mundane and boring. James, Steve, and Mark were the closest thing I had to a group of friends. I played with them online almost every day. We had so many adventures in WoW as a group, and yet I felt like the outcast of the group. Steve and Mark only considered me an online friend, never a real friend. I found out that the three of them had WoW meetups at one of their houses a lot, and they never invited me. Sometimes when I would be playing with them online, I would find out that they were all together in real life, but I was the only one left out. Whenever they did this, I acted bitter towards them through the game, but they didn't even care. Even in the World of Warcraft, I was an outcast, alone and unwanted. Okay. So, Elliot, what a normal person would do is ask them, hey, could I come to one of these? But no, instead you want to be a whiny little bitch, and you wonder why no one likes you. The more lonely I felt, the more angry I became. The anger slowly built up inside me throughout all of the dark years. Even after the release of the new WoW expansion, I noticed that the game's ability to alleviate my sense of loneliness was starting to fade. I began to feel lonely even while playing it, and often broke down into tears in the middle of my WoW sessions. Jesus Christ. I began to ask myself what the point was in playing this game anymore. I spent less and less time playing it. One day, I found some posts on the internet about teenagers having sex, and I was once again reminded of the life I had been denied. Okay, so he's actively searching for the shit that gives him so much pain. You can tell he's a real smart individual. I felt that no girl would ever want to have sex with me, and I developed extreme feelings of envy, hatred, and anger towards anyone who has a sex life. I saw them as the enemy. I felt condemned to live a life of lonely celibacy while other boys were allowed to experience the pleasures of sex, all because girls didn't want me. I felt inferior and undesirable. This time, however, I couldn't just stand by and accept such an injustice anymore. I refused to continue hiding away from the world and forgetting about all the insults it dealt to me. Hold on. One of my beard hairs are in my mouth. Ugh. Yeah, that was pleasant. Okay. I began to have fantasies of becoming very powerful and stopping everyone from having sex. Okay, so Elliot wants to be the ultimate cock blocker. I wanted to take their sex away from them, just like they took it away from me. Who took it away from you? You never got it to begin with. You can't take away something you never had. I saw sex as an evil and barbaric act, all because I was unable to have it. This was the major turning point. My anger made me stronger inside. You know what this sounds like? This sounds like that one bratty kid that your mom made you invite to your birthday party, even though you want nothing to do with him. And then when you got to open your presents, he was crying like a little bitch because the attention was away from him, and he wasn't getting presents even though it was your birthday. That's what this sounds like. This was the major turning point. My anger made me stronger inside. This was when I formed my ideas that sex should be outlawed. Yeah, I hated that kid. Yeah, everyone hated that kid. This was when I formed my ideas that sex should be outlawed. It is the only way to make the world a fair and just place. If I can't have it, I will destroy it. That's the conclusion I came to right then and there. I spent more time studying the world, seeing the world for the horrible, unfair place it is. I then had the revelation that just because I was condemned to suffer a life of loneliness and rejection doesn't mean I'm insignificant. Ugh. I have an exceptionally high level of intelligence. Oh yeah, I can tell. I see the world differently than anyone else. Because of all the injustices I went through and the worldview I developed because of them, I must be destined for greatness. What? I must be destined to change the world, to shape it into an image that suits me. Oh my god, we got fucking Light Yagami over here. Oh my god. I'm surprised when he was storing weapons, there wasn't a fucking death note right with it. At the beginning of winter break, I decided to quit playing World of Warcraft entirely. On my last day on the game, I had a long emotional conversation with James where I opened up about all of my troubles. I told him all of my newfound views of the world, and my belief that sex must be abolished. Okay, so I guess just fuck the entire human race, I guess. He seemed to be supportive of my stance, and I was glad he understood me. It was a very memorable day. Was he supportive, or was he like, oh yeah, definitely, Elliot, I don't see you as a complete fucking psychopath at all? Okay, here's where the oh my god thing happens. My father's movie was released, but it did not do well at all. He was only able to get it released in a few select theaters, and no one was interested in seeing it. He stupidly invested all of his money into the movie and got absolutely nothing out of it. This caused him to fall into a financial crisis that will that he will be stuck in for a long time. I was annoyed that he kept having to make it clear to us that he was now in a financial crisis. He talked about it all the time, and it was embarrassing. You kept asking him for money. No shit, he kept reminding you. Because you seem to keep forgetting. I mean, it was his fault, yeah. Because when you're going around the world shooting a shitty documentary that no one's going to watch, normally the people who are in the documentary aren't the ones footing the fucking bill. You get a production company to do that, you dumb fuck. What a bitter coincidence that right at the point when my life fell even deeper into agony, my father is cursed with this financial crisis. Right at the time when I needed my father's support the most, he lost all of his assets. It was as if some malevolent being cursed me with bad... Oh my god, yeah, Elliot's father lost all of his money and now has to sleep in the fucking gutter. Elliot's most affected out of this. Okay. I truly had no advantage at all. The universe was not kind to me. Oh, it wasn't kind to you, Elliot? It wasn't kind to you? Okay. Okay. I formed an ideology in my head of how the world should work. I was fueled both by my desire to destroy all of the injustices of the world and to exact revenge on everyone I envy and hate. I decided that my destiny in life is to rise to power so I can impose my ideology on the world and set everything right. I was only 17. I have plenty of time, I thought to myself. I spent all of my time studying in my room, reading books about history, politics, and sociology, trying to learn as much as I can. I became a new person, furiously driven by a goal. My torment would continue, but I had something to live for. I felt empowered. Yeah, I'm gonna become king of the pirates. I'm gonna find the One Piece, and I'll be king of the pirates, and my word will be law. I went over to James's house to have a sleepover. Usually when I went there, we spent the whole time playing WoW, with the exception of walking to town for lunch. Because I quit WoW, this was the first time we had to find other things to do. We spent most of the time going on walks around the Palisades town center or along the Palisades bluffs, talking about our views of the world and our hopes and dreams. I told him more about my hatred of people who have sex. James quickly deduced the reason for why I was so fervent about abolishing sex. That in truth, I really want to have sex, but I feel like I can never have it, so I wish to take it away from everyone else. He read me very well. I had to admit that he was right. That is the exact reason for it. So he can admit that he's an insecure little shit stain. I fulfilled my vow of finishing high school by March. In fact, I finished a bit earlier than I expected, in mid-February. I completed so many homework assignments towards the end, especially since I no longer played WoW. I was glad to be done with it. School was finally over. Not having to go to school anymore gave me a lot of free time to think and brood. As time progressed, I realized how hopeless everything in my life was. The chances that I will ever rise to power and right the wrongs of the world were extremely slim. Okay, he knew that much. More like none, but yeah. I had absolutely no idea or plan of how to acquire any sort of power. It was naive of me to think that I could one day become a dictator. The only thing I could do was fantasize about it. Yeah, everyone fantasizes about being Hitler at one point. Like the incel version of Hitler. My whole world twisted even deeper into darkness and despair as my depressing life continued on. My hatred for people who have sex festered inside of me like a plague. I frequently went on walks around town to brood over how hopeless and unfair everything was. It was better than being stuck in my room all the time. When I saw young couples walking around at the mall, my anger and hatred intensified greatly. It was the worst torture ever to see them making out and being intimate. My life, if you can call it a life, was living hell. Oh, excuse me, Jesus. Ooh. Okay. My parents quickly took note of how radical I was becoming, and they made a hasty plan to change my life. Of course, that is what they claimed. I think they were just trying to find a way to get rid of me because I was too hard to deal with. Sumaya was going back to Morocco, and they decided to send me with her. Oh. You know what I was getting so excited about in one of the previous episodes, the last time he went to Morocco? That's what I thought this was. So, we're on it now. Sumaya was going back to Morocco, and they decided to send me with her. It was the most ridiculous plan I've ever heard. They announced this to me at a cafe near my mother's house. I was expecting something extreme, something drastic, but this? It completely caught me off guard. Morocco? They think I'll be happy there? I furiously thought with disbelief. I was devastated, and for a moment I couldn't even speak. The last thing I wanted was to hide away in a backwater country with nothing to do, while all of my peers enjoy life in the U.S. I didn't want to run away from my troubles in the U.S. I wanted to confront them. I just didn't know how. Going to Morocco was the absolute worst solution for me, and they intended for me to stay there for a long time. After hearing this news, I felt a sense of urgency that I had never felt before. They already had a plane ticket ready for me, and I was scheduled to leave in 5 days. My immediate goal was to stop my parents from sending me to Morocco. Throwing a tantrum with my mother didn't work. She was set on this. I spent the remaining 5 days at Father's house. While there, I chose not to protest at all because I knew it wouldn't work. They will force me onto that plane one way or another. I decided to keep quiet and devise a plan of escape. I bided my time and didn't talk much to Father or Sumaya during those last few days. The plan I came up with was to run away on the morning before the flight, walk all the way to my mother's condo, and hide in a secret spot on the roof. It would be a place where they least expected me to be. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't want to go to a Middle East shithole either, but yeah. So, I can say I understand this one. I kept quiet in the last couple of days to throw off their suspicion, but that backfired and made them even more suspicious. I suppose they expected me to protest about going, and my silence made them think I was up to something. When the time came, I decided to get up at 4 a.m. to prepare. To my dismay, I noticed that my father set an alarm on the front door. I was planning to run away at 6 a.m. when the garbage truck arrived because the noise from the truck would mask any noise I make while leaving. The alarm, however, would definitely alert Father and Sumaya. I got too nervous and abandoned that idea. Instead, I waited until everyone woke up and had breakfast. My plan was ruined by the alarm, and I had to come up with a new plan fast. I had little time left. I innocently told Father that I wanted to go on a small walk before the departure, and as soon as I exited the front door, I bolted at full speed. It was hasty, but I had to do something. I didn't think Father would catch on to my deception so quickly. After only clearing 1 block, I looked behind my shoulder and saw Father chasing after me. All of my hope collapsed then and there. I lost all of the fight in me. I stopped running and put my head down in defeat. Sumaya came in the car minutes later, and they both took me home. The plan failed. I was going to Morocco. Really? He didn't think his father would chase after him, and he gave up that easily? Huh. Dude, just keep fucking running. You're a teenager. You got more energy than that middle-aged man. The journey to Morocco was the most horrendous travel experience I've ever had. It was just me, Sumaya, and 4-year-old Jazz. Jazz kept screaming and vomiting on the plane. Sumaya was in a sour mood, and I was completely miserable. I thought my whole life was all over. I had nothing to look forward to in the future. I wanted to die. Once I got there, I felt like all of the life in me had drained out. I was so defeated. I couldn't help but cry all the time, even in front of Sumaya's relatives. Khadija didn't understand why I was so upset, and she got offended that I was crying on the first day at her house. It was a complete disaster. I kept dreaming of home. I thought of the prospect of being able to return home, and a small hope sparked in me. I kept emailing my mother frequently, telling her how much I hated being there and how much I cried all the time. I told her that if she would give me one more chance and enable me to come home, I will try harder to lead a better life and become a person she could be proud of. After a solid week of doing this, my mother gave in and flew to Morocco to take me home. I won. I was going home. He literally emailed his own mom multiple times a day, every day, begging to come home, and she finally caved in after 7 days of this shit and said, "All right, fine, I'll take you home." And this went over so well with his father and Sumaya. When I returned to the U.S., I felt so relieved that I forgot about my troubles for a few days and relaxed. It was good to be back home. This is where my fight is, right here in the U.S. and nowhere else. The sense of elation I felt soon wore off. My lonely life as a social outcast resumed. Oh God, sorry. Yeah, acid reflux. Okay. Oh, that stung. I'm good. I continued going on my usual long walks every day, feeling angry and hateful towards the world. "Oh yeah, I'll change if you let me go home." Goes home, literally doesn't change and goes back to his old bullshit. During Mother's Week, I would walk to the mall and sit on the balcony overlooking the food court next to the AMC theaters. There I would see all of the young couples lining up to see a movie, and I boiled with hatred. During Father's Week, I walked to the Calabasas Commons nearby, and sometimes I rode my bicycle. I also walked up the hill near my father's house to the overlook. I spent a lot of time up there, contemplating about my life and fantasizing about becoming powerful enough to punish everyone I hate. Yeah, he was real keen on change. On one dreadful day, I was riding my bike near Calabasas. A group of popular teenagers in an SUV drove by and made fun of me. I suppose my appearance didn't help with that. I looked exactly like the outcast I was. I was still wearing plain polo shirts and khaki pants at the time, covered with a blue zip-up hoodie and black baseball cap. It was a torturous experience, and the pain I felt from it never went away. All I wanted was to fit in with those popular kids who lived such pleasurable lives, but instead I was ridiculed and reviled by them. They made me feel so inferior and undesirable. I will never forget that experience. It was burned into my memory. My misery became harder and harder to bear, and none of my parents understood my plight. My father thought that all was well with me. How could he be so blind? Man, Mike, he would have hated to see us at the mall. Yeah, he would have. How could he be so blind? He would have poured his Starbucks vanilla latte all over us, and then, I would have kicked his ass. He was so caught up in his failing work that he didn't care about how my life was turning out. I cursed him for it. My father never made any effort to prepare me for facing such a cruel world. He never taught me how to attract girls. He never warned me that if I didn't attract girls at an early age, my life would fall into a miserable pit of despair. Again, how could he be so blind? I asked myself constantly. It all came to a climax on one of the days that I walked to the Calabasas Commons. I treaded through the area with my head down, all alone, in a state of complete despair about my life. I looked around me and saw lots of young couples holding hands and groups of good-looking teenage boys and girls walking together and having fun on their Saturday night out. I saw all those teenagers enjoying their pleasurable lives together while I was all alone. They were enjoying everything I couldn't have. I was filled with intense anguish, and I quickly ran all the way back to Father's house with tears pouring down my cheeks. Once I got home, I had a breakdown and cried for hours and hours into the night. Okay, now we're on to part 5, Hope and Hopelessness, age 17 through 19. So I'm going to take a quick drink, and then we'll get started on that. Alrighty. But yeah, you notice more and more how this whole thing goes on. He becomes more and more of a little bitch, as I keep saying. But, it bears repeating because it's true. Hold on, gotta tighten my mic stand a bit. Alright, part 5, Hope and Hopelessness, age 17 to 19. When I woke up the next morning, I felt a bit calmer. Calmer enough to think clearly about what just happened. I couldn't bear to have my life continue this way, so I tried to evaluate why I have had to suffer so much. I spent the whole day in calm meditation, deeply reviewing my life to see how I fell into this dark place. I concluded that I cannot just give up on having the life I want if I never try to get it. I realized that I was still only 17, and that there are many possibilities for me in the future. Okay, hold on, guys. This hat is really small, but if I take it off, you'll see how fucked up my hair is, so I'm just going to go get another hat. Alright, and the Ushanka is not retired yet. So, alright, where was I? I realized that I was still only 17 and that there are many possibilities for me in the future. I wanted to give myself a new chance at life, despite all the odds that were against me. I wanted something to live for, something to look forward to in the future. This calm session of contemplation made me feel a lot better. I told my parents and my sister that I was willing to make a renewed effort to change. They seemed very happy with me. For once in their eyes, I wasn't being negative about life. I examined myself in the mirror and decided that if I wanted to make a fresh start, the first thing to do would be to change my appearance. I got a haircut, and then my mother and sister took me shopping at the Fallbrook Mall for some new clothes. I knew nothing about fashion at the time, so I just chose a few new jeans. I hadn't worn jeans since I was 10 years old. For the first time in many years, I started to care about how I looked again. I spent a few more days calming myself down. I then started to feel something that has been lost to me for a long time. Hope. Okay, I noticed how he left out the aftermath of the whole thing with the shit he pulled in Morocco. His folks were not happy that he canceled the fucking... that he canceled the trip on his own terms after 7 days. They were pissed about that. I do not remember what the aftermath was, but I think it was Sumaya said, "You're not welcome in this house anymore." So, yeah. I know that happened at some point. I'm not 100% sure if this was what caused that or if it was something else later down the line, but that did happen. Spoilers over, though. Okay, once we get to page 70 or so, we'll be halfway through it. So, yeah. Without hope, I just couldn't go on any longer. I needed to feel hope. Hope for the future. Hope for a better life. Upon feeling this, I realized that perhaps it is possible for me to do the things I desire. To have a great social life again. To have a girlfriend. To have sex. To have all of the pleasures I've desperately craved for so long. It was refreshing. He's acting like sex is such a mind-changing experience. Trust me, after losing my virginity, I'm still the same asshole I always was. On the 4th of July, we went to a big party at the Lemelsons. There, I had a heavy discussion with James about my revelation and goals. He seemed very glad that I had a newfound zest for life. He admitted that he was getting very worried about me from the way I was going. James was in a similar situation as I was. He was a virgin like me, never having much interaction with girls in his life. The two of us talked for hours about our troubles and our hopes of overcoming them. It was nice to have such a good friend like James on my side, who could understand and relate to me. I made a new Facebook profile, which I still use to this day. I mean, not to this day, but yeah. in an effort to improve my social life. Having been so lost in my own world for the last 4 years, I didn't know much about these new social networking sites such as Facebook and MySpace. MySpace was still considered new back then? Huh. The last time I was interested in such things was when I made an AIM account, but no one used that anymore. Once I fired up my profile, I was able to reconnect with a few friends from Topanga Elementary. I talked to Philip over Facebook, and the two of us made plans to meet up later in the summer after not seeing each other for 2 years. I also attempted to reconnect with my old friends Charlie and John Joe, remembering all of the great experiences I had with them. I managed to speak with them on the phone a couple of times, but they didn't seem keen on meeting up, and I subsequently abandoned the effort. I had a quiet 18th birthday at a restaurant with my family. Sumaya was still in Morocco, so mother and father agreed to meet for it. It was one of the few times that I had dinner with both my mother and my father since their divorce. I received some birthday cards from relatives wishing me a great year ahead. I took a vow that day to make this new year of my life a happy one, to turn my life around and fulfill all my desires. Yeah, he did this like 4 times now and still hasn't done anything towards making any sort of progress for that. Interesting. And so began a period of great yearning, a great chase, so to speak. I will chase after a hope that I built for myself, only to have that hope shattered at every turn. Alright, and with that, we will move on to 18 years old. Finally considered a legal adult, but he sure as shit doesn't act like an adult. He's still the same fucking childish moron as ever. Oh, God. Yep. I was 18, a high school graduate, and summer was nearing its end. I had to think about continuing my education. I was eager to be as productive with my time as I could be. College represented a hope for me. I would be starting a new kind of school where there are lots of people and opportunities. I might possibly make friends, have interactions with girls, and maybe even get a girlfriend. The thought filled me with enthusiasm. And so I enrolled at Pierce College, the first of a few colleges I would jump to in my desperate attempts to find a desirable life. Pierce College is a large community college in Woodland Hills, not far from both my mother's and father's houses. When I looked through the list of classes, I saw that most of them were already full. The only class I was able to get was a computer class, and I settled with that. I could always spend time at the college even while not in class, I concluded. Having only one class would help me ease into college at a milder pace. I hadn't been in a normal school system for 3 years. I feared I might get nervous. But then, after thinking about everything I had been through in the last few months, I knew I had the strength and courage to tackle it. My mother made the decision to move to a new apartment near Calabasas. She took me and my sister there to show it to us beforehand. The room that I would get would be smaller, and it wouldn't have its own bathroom, but the apartment was located in a much better area, and it was walking distance from my father's house, the Mulholland Shopping Center, and the Calabasas Commons. I ended up persuading my mother to move there, as it would be much more convenient. On the first day at the new place, I took a long stroll around the nearby areas. Of course, those areas weren't unfamiliar to me, as I had walked around there many times during Father's Week. But this was the first time I went on a long walk since my breakdown, and it made me feel more confident. I met up with Philip Blozer after not seeing him for 2 years. The last time I saw him was during the summer I turned 16. My mother dropped me off at this house, and I wasn't surprised to find that he was still the exact same person. Mature, reserved, a little awkward, and prone to random bouts of hyper energy. Jeffrey was also there, and he was still as wild and boisterous as ever, though he had changed a lot in appearance, no longer being the little kid I was so used to seeing him as. Philip already had his driver's license, so the two of us went out in his car to meet Addison Altendorf, who had just moved back to the U.S. and was living with his mother in an apartment in Malibu. Oh my god, you named your son Addison? You're asking him to get his ass kicked. Philip and Addison have always been very close friends with each other, and the two of them go everywhere together. I hadn't seen Addison since Topanga Elementary. Okay, so that means he already mentioned this, so I already probably said this exact same shit in a previous episode. It's been a while, okay? I don't rewatch the entirety of old episodes. Whenever I do these streams, I just watch the tail end of it to see where I was left off at. At first glance, I didn't know what to make of him. It was like meeting a whole new person. He had changed tremendously. With his mustache and hairstyle, he looked older than he was, cultivating a refined and sophisticated personality and wearing an elegant blazer coat. Well, yeah, you gotta do all that shit to compensate for being named a girl's name. As I spent time with Addison that day, I started to enjoy talking to him about politics in the world. He was very intelligent and more informed than other people our age. I bought my first lottery ticket when I went out shopping with my mother one day. We stopped at Ralph's when I noticed the lottery machine. I didn't know anything about the lottery, so I asked my mother about it. She told me how it works and taught me how to buy a ticket. Each ticket provides a very small chance of winning millions of dollars, and the jackpot could rise to the hundreds of millions. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know such a thing existed. After buying my ticket, I felt thrilled with the prospect of having a chance to become a multi-millionaire. That ticket, of course, didn't win, and neither would any of the tickets I buy after it, but they would give me hope. Oh boy, I think we're going to the lottery arc of the story. I never thought about nor cared about money before I turned 18 because I was still living like a child, with my parents handling the money and giving me the things I needed. However, the more older I grew, the more I realized how important money was, and the more obsessed I would about become about getting rich. This obsession, which was barely taking root at the time, sparked a long relationship with the lottery that would only end in disappointment and despair. Oh yeah, we're starting the lottery arc, guys. At Father's house, we watched the movie Alpha Dog after dinner one night. The movie depicts a lot of teenagers and young people partying and having sex with beautiful girls, living the life that I've desired for so long. The main character is a 15-year-old kid who has sex with 2 hot girls in a swimming pool. Okay, alright. I was so envious that I delighted in his death at the end. Jesus! Okay, so on top of being CP, it's also a snuff film. That's great. Jesus Christ, dude. I remember thinking that I would rather live his life than mine, even though he died. He had sex, and I didn't. This movie deeply affected me emotionally, and I would think about it for some time afterwards. I started my new semester at Pierce College. I still hadn't obtained my driver's license yet, so I was forced to take the public bus to school. This was an extremely unpleasant experience, but I was willing to bear with it just so I could go to college and improve my life. On my first day, I couldn't help but feel nervous. The place reminded me of Taft, though the people seemed nicer and the environment was less intimidating. When I settled down into my class, I felt that things will turn out okay. Okay, here it is. Here's the aftermath of the Morocco shit. Sumaya returned from Morocco and she was very angry with me due to the way I acted while I was there. She effectively kicked me out of Father's house, and because I was 18, she was allowed to. Father didn't do anything to stop her, being the weak man that he is. This is how it has always been. Father has always given Sumaya free rein to impose her rules on the household. He gave her all the power. This act officially ended the 1 week arrangement, and Mother's house became my permanent living space. Not only did she kick me out of Father's house, but she forbade me from going over there even for a short visit, and still my father didn't do anything about it. Father kept saying that the house is her house as much as his, and she has the right to kick me out. No! I'm the eldest son! This house should be my house before hers! This caused any respect I still had for my father to fade away completely. It was such a betrayal to put his second wife before his eldest son. What kind of father would do that? The bitch must be really good to... The bitch must be really good to him in bed, I figured. What a weak man. Why the fuck are you saying that about your stepmother, you sick fuck? Oh my god, it's some what are you doing, step bro type shit. Oh my god. Every day I tried to make some effort to go out looking for ways to improve my life. I felt that staying in my room was a waste of time. I knew what I wanted, but I had no idea how to get it. I frequently went on walks around my mother's neighborhood in the desperate hope that someone would befriend me or a girl would talk to me. Nothing of the sort ever happened. Sometimes I walked all the way up to the overlook, as my mother's apartment was just on the other side of it. And sometimes I walked to the Calabasas Commons, where I would hang out at Barnes & Noble, reading books, always with the hope that some young people would reach out and befriend me, but no one ever did. I would be hanging out at Barnes & Noble all the time if there was one closer to my house, because I think the closest one to me is like at least an hour away. But yeah, if there was a Barnes & Noble close to my house, you'd be catching me there fucking at the Starbucks. Probably just reading manga or some shit. Because I'm a fucking weeb. Always with the hope that some young people would reach out and befriend me, but no one ever did. I kept hoping and hoping and hoping. Hope is what kept me alive. I continued seeing Philip and Addison, my only other social interaction besides James. I talked to Addison about my old political views, debating with him about what an ideal world would look like. I found out that he had some fascist views of his own, and it was nice to have a discussion with someone about things that would make most normal people run a mile. So he's admitting that he's a fascist. Okay, he's not even ashamed of that fact. He's like, yep, I'm Elliot Rodger and I'm a fucking fascist. And so's this fucking Nazi guy I hang out with. Jesus Christ. I can tell he's surrounding himself with some really stable individuals. We'd be there every day, Mike. Yeah. Most days, yeah. I frequently messaged Addison on Facebook, hoping to start up conversations when I felt lonely. He told me he was just starting his 12th grade year at Malibu High School, and his goal was to fit in with the popular kids. Fitting in with popular kids at Malibu High School? I didn't expect Addison to be successful in such a venture. Well, this is California, so you better not fucking tell them that you're a fascist. Addison invited me to his birthday party. It was a small get-together on the beach in Point Dume, Malibu. Oh, and he had a swastika-shaped birthday cake. I had a very hard time socializing with people, so I ended up drinking too much alcohol. Before Philip drove me home, I vomited outside Addison's apartment, in front of his mother and everyone else. It was highly embarrassing, and I put a lot of effort to block it from my mind afterwards. James came to my mother's new apartment for a sleepover. We walked to the Calabasas Commons together. Excuse me. It was nice to show him all of my favorite spots there, like the window at Barnes & Noble and that overlooks the whole area, and the turtle ponds next to the King's Restaurant. It was a great place to talk and contemplate. We had some deep conversations about our fantasies and our hopes for the future. When I was a child, Halloween used to be a fun and exciting experience, but ever since the last time I went trick-or-treating, Halloween has been a time when I spent the whole night in my room while other teenagers were out having fun partying. On this Halloween, I was desperate to do something social. I just couldn't sit in my room on such a night. I found out from stalking random people on Facebook that there was going to be a huge house party in West Hills. I decided to take a big leap forward and attend this house party, even though I wouldn't know anybody there. I had nothing to lose, and it would give me more of a chance of meeting girls if I stayed in my room all night. Because I couldn't drive, I had to walk all the way there, and it took 45 minutes. When I got there, I was overcome by anxiety, but I couldn't back out at that point. I paid the entry fee of $5 and walked right in. To my dismay, the party was smaller than I expected. All of the kids were smoking marijuana, and they all seemed to know each other. It would only be a matter of time before they detected that I was an outcast. I stood around awkwardly for a few minutes before giving up and walking home. Okay, so let's sum this up here. He walked 45 fucking minutes to a house party that was hosted by no one he even knew. He knew no one that was going there. He paid $5 to enter, only to stand around like a fucking retard for 5 minutes, and then suddenly go home. He walked 45 minutes back after all that. That seems like such a productive use of your time. I couldn't see how that could possibly fail at all. Fucking retard. On the way home, just as I was about to reach my mother's house, a group of 4 young thugs drove by me in a pickup truck and proceeded to throw eggs at me, laughing while they did it. What is this, Diary of a Wimpy Kid? I mean, this essentially is. It's like an 18-plus version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Funny enough, Mumkey Jones did make a Diary of a Wimpy Kid parody about My Twisted World. It was like a parody of that, so, maybe after I finish reading the manifesto, I'll read that. Diary of a Supreme Gentleman. It's fucking hilarious. They proceeded to throw eggs at me, laughing while they did it. They seemed intoxicated, and they missed me. I picked up one of the shells and threw it right back into their car. I was no longer a weak little kid who would take a hit without fighting back. You call throwing an eggshell back into his car lazily fighting back, really? I was stronger now. They got out of their car and tried to attack me, and they would have beaten me bloody if I didn't pull out my trusty pocket knife, which I usually carried when I walked alone by myself. Thankfully, the thugs backed away and drove off. Perhaps it was the knife or the look of extreme hatred in my eyes. I quickly ran home, terrified. It was an unsuccessful and misfortunate night. Well, if you just stayed and smoked weed with those other guys, it would have been a best case scenario because you could have made some new friends. But no, you decided to stand there like a fucking spurg. For a few days after Halloween, I kept thinking about that incident with the horrible thugs who almost attacked me. They must have seen me as a weakling who they could bully for their amusement. I didn't want the world to view me as weak. This led to my new commitment to start exercising and lifting weights. Oh boy. I give it less than a week before he gave up. I began working out at the gym in my mother's apartment complex every other day. I hoped it would increase my confidence and make me appear a bit stronger. Maybe if I built muscles, girls will be attracted to me, I hopefully proclaimed to myself. Okay, Hulk Hogan, let's calm down. I had never worked out or lifted weights in my life, so my body has always been very frail and delicate. This was a new experience, and it made me feel more productive. Sumaya's grudge against me lessened after a couple of months, and she allowed me to go to Father's house for dinner occasionally. I was very angry with Father, but I hid my anger. I still needed him. Father began teaching me how to drive once I received my driver... He's 18 and he didn't go for his permit yet? Oh yeah, well, he did walk, but yeah. Yeah, duh. Which was quite hard to get. I had to take a written test with many questions, and I failed it on my first try. On the second attempt, I managed to pass. My first experience driving was very scary. I played a few racing video games in my life, but driving a car for real was much more intimidating. No shit! At first, I could barely even drive around my father's quiet neighborhood. I was overcome by the fear that I will never be able to drive. I soon got more used to it during the next few sessions. Soon enough, I was able to drive a short distance up Topanga Canyon with ease. I still didn't feel prepared to take my official driver's test, though. Yeah, that's how I felt when I was learning. I got over it, though. You just gotta drive more and get used to it. There's no other way around that. Despite my attempts to improve my life, I was still feeling frustrated and angry. I was getting nothing out of my efforts. I still hadn't made any friends at Pierce College, and I didn't interact with any girls. My days at Pierce College grew more and more mundane and depressing. I went to class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, taking the bus to the AMC and walking the rest of the way. In the classroom, I had a hard time socializing with anyone. Making friends seemed impossible. My mother was casually dating a very wealthy man named Jack at the time, though I couldn't find out that they were dating until much later. When she first mentioned him, I thought he was just a friend. Jack gave Mother the keys to his Malibu beach house, and we went to stay there for a few nights, though Jack wasn't there. The house was a beautiful, white-colored mansion located right on a private beach. The backyard had a swimming pool and a hot tub, with a gate leading right onto the shoreline. My mother had a small get-together at the beach house, and she invited James and his family, along with some other friends. James didn't show up, but his father Art did. To my surprise, Maddie Humphreys and her mother came over. Seeing Maddie for the first time in 6 years was a very peculiar experience. The last time we saw each other, we were just kids. Now she was a fully grown teenage girl, and looking through her Facebook pictures, I knew she was popular. She was a typical pretty girl who had lots of pretty friends. She was one of them, one of the popular kids. My first friend in America, someone I played with innocently as a child, had grown up to represent the type of people who have caused me so much pain in my life. I was very nervous talking to her, as I had no experience with talking to young girls, but I had to make the effort. She seemed weirded out by my awkwardness. It was cringeworthy. Yeah, this whole fucking thing's cringeworthy. While staying at the beach house, I invited Philip and Addison over to hang out, as they were always in Malibu together. They came to pick me up, and while I was in the car with them, Addison kept talking about how successful he's been at mingling with the popular kids at Malibu High School. He kept talking about all the parties he's been to and all the pretty girls he has met. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Addison actually did it. He succeeded in becoming popular at his school. In such a short time, he was able to accomplish what I've been trying to do my whole life. I was extremely jealous. Okay, 59. Okay, we're about an hour in. And that was not the worst of it. As I spent more time with them that night, I noticed that Addison's new status amongst the popular Malibu crowd had changed his attitude. It made him very cocky and arrogant. He treated me like a loser the whole time. Later that night, he ditched me and Philip to go to a party with some girls that he knew from Malibu. I was seething with rage. We then went to the Santa Monica Pier with Philip's friend Lenny, and I saw young couples everywhere. I used to love going to the Santa Monica Pier as a child, but now it was a place of vileness. After putting up with Addison's insulting behavior, this was too much. I became so upset that I tried my first cigarette. I would end up smoking a few times after that, though I would quit within a few weeks due to it having no effect on me. When Philip dropped me back to the beach house, I walked to the beach in the middle of the night and yelled out my anguish to the roiling ocean. Imagine somebody walking by at the beach at night and then just seeing this fucking retard screaming at the ocean. It's like, okay, honey, this guy's probably on drugs and he's probably armed. Let's get the fuck out of here before he tries to rob us. You know, just a crazy drug-addicted homeless guy yelling at the sea. After that last experience with Philip and Addison, my attitude changed. My newfound optimism about life subsided, and I began feeling intense anger and hatred towards the world again. The way Addison treated me made me realize what the world thinks of me. If I was one of those popular kids, Addison would have treated me with deference and respect, but I wasn't. I was a complete loser in his eyes and everyone else's. No effort I made in the last few months changed the way the world saw me. The world still viewed me as a weak and undesirable loser, even though I changed my wardrobe and started working out. What was the point anymore, I asked myself. I couldn't help but feel anger and hatred. Life was too unfair to me. Fuck you. I continued going on walks around Mother's house in the desperate hope that I might possibly cross paths with some pretty girl who would be attracted to me. I would have been satisfied with that. This fucker's literally wiping his tears with the fucking fat stacks of cash that his family has. What a fucking asshole. Sometimes I spent 2 or 3 hours wandering around the neighborhood. It was all I could do. I never met any girl. Each walk left me bitterly disappointed, and eventually I stopped doing it altogether. My time at Pierce College became more miserable each day I went there. I despised having to take the bus. It was embarrassing and stressful, and it sucked all of the pride out of me. And for what? To go to one class where I didn't talk to anyone? There was no point in it anymore. I couldn't stand the feeling of loneliness I had there. No one wanted to be my friend. It just wasn't worth the trouble. I decided to drop my class. My mother got very angry that I dropped my class at Pierce, even though I thoroughly explained to her the reasons. This was when she started pressuring me to get a job. Getting a job is something I never thought about before in my life. And I soon realized that the older I became, the more it was expected of me if I didn't go to college. Oh, excuse me. Jesus Christ. I'm gassy today. Fuck. To placate my mother, I started searching for jobs online every day, but I wasn't able to find one that was suitable for me. I felt hatred and dissatisfaction with the world and society, but I didn't want to hide away from it anymore. I needed to be as productive with my time as possible, and I had a lot of free time at this point. The best way to make use of this time, I concluded, was to spend it self-educating myself. Knowledge is power. If knowledge is power, why'd you drop out of the fucking college? Dumbass! I began a daily routine of walking to Barnes & Noble in Calabasas every day, where I would spend hours reading books that ranged from biographies of powerful leaders, histories of significant periods, self-help books, philosophy and psychology texts, and historical fiction novels. I sometimes even spent entire days there, from the time it opened to the time it closed. In the afternoons, to my extreme rage, I sometimes saw young couples strolling through the store. Sometimes they would even sit on the reading chairs, kissing and fondling each other. Whenever I saw this, I got so overcome by envy and heartbreak that I went to the bathroom to cry. Yeah, what else is new? The occasional couples didn't stop me from going there, however, because it was the most beneficial thing for me to do at that moment. Or, getting a fucking job, but, I still met up with Philip and Addison occasionally, even though I hated Addison. They provided me with a sense of a social life and a way for me to vent about my troubles. Addison treated me like a lowlife every time I hung out with them. And he kept bragging about the girls he met at parties in Malibu. I indignantly accused him of lying, as that was what I wanted to believe. He was only amused by my envy. I then found that Addison deleted me from his Facebook friends list out of the blue. This was the last slight I would bear from him, and I subsequently sent him a hateful Facebook message in response. I then viewed Addison as a bitter enemy of mine. He truly was a disgusting and treacherous little bastard. Addison was once in the same position as I, but right when he succeeded in integrating with the popular kids, he betrayed me and treated me the same way the popular kids treated me, as if I'm low-life scum. The world truly is a brutal place, where a man must fight a bitter struggle against all other men to reach the top. Humans are nothing but vicious beasts in a jungle. It's a bunch of fucking Facebook friends. Calm the fuck down. I delved more into learning as much as I could from books at Barnes & Noble. I expanded on the political and philosophical ideas I concocted when I was 17, and I soon became even more radical about them than I ever was before. It was all fueled by my wish to punish people who are sexually active, because I concluded that it wasn't fair that other people were able to experience sex while I've been denied it all my life. I started to have the desire to create a world where no one is allowed to have sex or relationships. I again saw that as the perfect, fair world. Reproduction can be accomplished without sex through artificial insemination. Sex is evil, as it gives too much pleasure to those who don't deserve it. Shut the fuck up. What a fucking loser. And this is me saying that. I wasn't exactly the most popular person either, but you didn't see any bitch-ass whining from me. Okay. Allergy season. Nose is getting stuffed up. I shaped all of these ideals through learning and self-educating myself for hours every day. Department of Redundancy Department, self-educating myself. Yeah, yeah, I can tell that the self-educating yourself really paid off, Elliot. My personality became even more rigid, and I started to dress in very conservative attire. I went with my mother to the yearly Christmas party at the Lemelsons. I spent most of the time with James, discussing with him further about my ideals. We also played a lot of video games with Noah and his friends. Noah was really interested in Nintendo games, and he had a lot of them. Playing games with them reminded me of a time long ago in my past when I played Nintendo 64 as a child, blissfully living life in a world that I thought was good. I longed to be a child again, to be in a bright place away from the cruel darkness of reality. I will always treasure those memories. Yeah, speaking of Nintendo, on the Switch eShop, there's like a bunch of fucking good-ass games on sale. Like, I got a couple One Piece games for like only $6 a piece. It was cool. I had to go Christmas shopping, and I decided to do it at the Calabasas Commons. I was always going there anyway. Oh, fucking hell, dude. While walking around, I ran into Maddie, who was there with her boyfriend. For some strange reason, I have never had any sexual attraction towards Maddie, despite the fact that she's a blonde girl and I'm obsessed with blondes. Perhaps it was because she used to be my friend when we were children, I don't know. Because I wasn't attracted to her, I didn't find myself feeling as much jealousy as one might think when I would in such a situation. It was still very awkward. I just said hello to her quickly and walked away. I didn't feel as much jealousy, so he still felt some. Yeah, okay. On New Year's Eve of 2010, the day that marked the end of the decade, I caught a terrible illness and had to stay in bed for the whole afternoon as well as the next day. My mother was going to go to one of her friends' houses, but she felt sorry for me and stayed at home. I spent the whole time lying in my bed brooding about my life. I don't know what was worse, the physical pain I felt from the sickness or the emotional pain and rage I had towards the world. I would say the latter. Oh my god, my nose fucking itches so much. Hold on, guys. Corona may be over, but you'll still catch me wearing this mask. On the stream, anyway. To be honest, though, like, I think the mask thing should stay for people who are sick to wear in public. Just people who are sick. Like, how they're doing it in Asian countries. I honestly think that would be alright. I think that would be a better thing. Are you okay? I'm fine. I just had an itchy nose and I was thirsty. That's it. Okay. Where was I? When the illness had passed on the following afternoon, I thought about how it caused me to waste my New Year's holiday in my room, but then I mused that I would have done the same thing anyway, whether I was sick or not, because I had no friends to celebrate New Year's with. I checked Addison's Facebook profile with one of my stalking accounts, and I saw that he went to a huge New Year's party at a mansion with his popular Malibu friends. He took lots of pictures of himself posing with various girls. I hated him so much when I saw that. The level of hatred I felt was unreal. He was doing everything I wanted to do. Why him and not me? I cursed at the world. What was seen can never be unseen, and I will never forget it, nor will I forgive it. My hope that I will one day have a beautiful girlfriend and live the life I desire slowly faded away. I was in the same dark and miserable place I had been a year previously. Lonely, unwanted, miserable, and seething with rage at the world. I kept thinking about how some boys were easily able to get girlfriends straight after they went through puberty. I couldn't fathom how they did it, and I hated and despised them for it. I kept thinking about Leo Bubenheim and how he kissed that girl Nicole at the Sagebrush Cantina when he was only 12. 12! He was able to have an intimate experience with a girl when he was only 12, and there I was at 18, still a kissless virgin. Okay, so that's where 4chan got that term from. Got it. My envy of Leo became an obsession. I kept asking my sister for information about him, but she refused to tell me anything. I frightfully wondered if he had lost his virginity already, and he most likely had. He was a popular kid, and girls desired him. Leo was happily living his heavenly life with the knowledge that he's worth something to the world, while I had to wallow in my misery and loneliness. It must be a miserable fucking existence thinking that sex is the best that life can offer you. I mean, it's pretty great, don't get me wrong, but there's better things in this world. Life is not fair. I swear to God, if you started from the beginning and took a shot every time he says something's unfair, you'd be dead from fucking alcohol poisoning by the end of it. One can either accept that fact, keeling over in defeat, or one can harness the strength to fight against it. My destiny was to fight against the unfairness of the world. Oh, Jesus Christ, excuse me. Oh. My mother carried on pressuring me to get a job, and she would never leave me alone about it. She was a bit frustrated that I wasn't getting one. The two of us had a lot of arguments, and living with my mother became an extreme hassle. After signing me up to a program in the regional center, my mother found a life coach to counsel me and help me find a job. This life coach's name was Tony, a boisterous 40-year-old man who came to meet me every other week. As I was going along with this, I had plenty of free time, and fucking hell, man. Excuse me. It's because I'm talking so much. I wasn't doing this before the stream. It's just because I'm talking so much. Yeah, I'm fine. I had plenty of free time, and I was so lonely that any social interaction was welcome. For our meetings, Tony usually took me out to lunch somewhere in the valley, where he gave me advice on socializing and self-improvement. I continued searching for a job, but I still wasn't able to find one. I refused all the jobs that Tony suggested to me. The problem was that most of the jobs that were available to me at the time were jobs I considered to be beneath me. Here we fucking go. My mother wanted me to get a simple retail job, and the thought of myself doing that was mortifying. It would be completely against my character. I'm an intellectual who is destined for greatness. I would never perform a low-class service job. Yeah, how's the weather up on that fucking high horse? My father told me that I could work for his friend Carl Champley for a few weeks to help him build a staircase in his new house. I knew Carl quite well, for he used to come over to Father's for dinner occasionally. Carl was just finishing up building his new house in Woodland Hills, just a few minutes away from Father's house. He offered to hire me to help with the staircase. I agreed to take this job. Sure, construction work was lowly and laborious, but this was different. This was more like assisting a friend, and it would be in a private environment. It was the perfect temporary job opportunity, and it would most definitely get my mother off my back. I still wasn't able to drive, so I rode my bicycle there from Mother's house every morning. The trip on the bicycle took 30 minutes. It was grueling to ride a bicycle up that steep, winding road every day, but it provided good exercise, which I was in need of. I worked with Carl every weekday for about 3 weeks. It turned out to be quite a pleasant experience. Carl was very friendly and I enjoyed working with him. When we finished the staircase, which was a spiral staircase that led up to his roof deck, we took a moment to admire the work we did. On my last day working for Carl, I decided to stop by my father's house to have a drink. I was quite parched from the bicycle ride. Oh, this. I entered the house without knocking since I believed I had the right to. As the eldest son, the house should be my house after my father. Sumaya was surprised to see me, and she got angry that I didn't knock. To teach me a lesson, she ordered me to go back outside and knock. I refused, telling her that she has no right to order me around anymore. I then helped myself to a glass of water. Sumaya knocked the glass of water out of my hand, and it shattered on the floor. Father clamored angrily up the stairs from his office, demanding to know what was going on. The three of us had a heated argument, and of course, Father took Sumaya's side. They both kicked me out of the house, telling me that I'm not to return. I felt betrayed and humiliated as I furiously made my way back to Mother's house. At that very moment, I hated both of them, and I wouldn't see either of them for many months. For those months, my father was dead to me. My mother was all I had left in this bleak world. Oh my God. During that same week, I had a climactic meeting with Philip and Addison, where my noxious feud with Addison Altendorf reached a boiling point. We went on an outing to the Griffith Park Observatory, as we usually did when we got together. This time, my arguments with Addison were very intense. I tried to insult him with as much as I could in a petty attempt to get revenge at him for all the insults and slights he dealt to me. We went back and forth at each other for the whole evening, to the chagrin of poor Philip, who had to put up with it. By the end of the night, Addison said something to me that was so offensive it will haunt me forever. And it rang true. No girl in this whole world will ever want to fuck you. Based Addison. Okay, I take it back. Addison, he's kind of a fucking Chad. I already felt that no girl in the world wanted to fuck me. I was a kissless virgin after all. That was the sole reason why I was suffering. But to hear it come from someone else, someone like Addison, really caused it to sink into the core of my mentality and emotions. The whole night made for a very vile and wicked experience. I decided not to see Philip and Addison for a long time. Because I was no longer seeing Philip and Addison, James was once again my only friend. I frequently talked to him over Skype. Sometimes I would go over to his house, where the two of us went on our traditional walks around the Palisades town center. James still played World of Warcraft, and he was trying to get me back into it. I was quite tempted. After everything I'd been through in the last few months, I did feel the urge to delve back into that void. Facing the world was tough, and it took its toll on me, especially since I've seen no results. I was still in the same position I had always been. Lonely, unwanted, and miserable. I found out that my mother was actually dating Jack, the wealthy man who owned the Malibu beach house. No! No, he gave her the keys to a fucking mansion, but no, she's not fucking him at all. They're just friends. You fucking naive moron. My mother never told me or my sister about any men that she dated. She always kept that strictly private. I hadn't even met Jack yet. He was worth well over $500 million, and he owned other mansions in Bel Air and Beverly Hills. Now this is a story all about how I slapped the shit out of Chris fucking Rock. Okay, that's not funny anymore. That is not funny anymore. When I found out about this, I started to harbor the hope that my mother will get married to this man, and I will be part of a rich family. That will definitely be a way out of my miserable and insignificant life. Money would solve everything. I started to frequently ask my mother to seek marriage with this man. To seek marriage with this man, or any wealthy man for that matter. She always adamantly refused and demanded that I stopped talking about it. She told me that she never wanted to get married again after her experience with my father. I told her that she should sacrifice her well-being for the sake of... What the fuck? What the fuck? What did I just read? I told her that she should sacrifice her well-being for the sake of my happiness, but this only offended her further. Gee, I can't fucking imagine why. Oh my god, you are an asshole. Elliot is a fucking dick. Oh my god, he actually fucking said that. What the fuck? I am in shock. Like, I knew he had a low fucking morality, but holy shit, dude. Oh my god, that is a new low here. This is the biggest moral low we've had so far. Oh my god. Sacrifice her well-being for the sake of my happiness. Jesus Christ. How he wasn't eating her fist like a half a line into that, I don't know. That's horrible. Yeah. I mean, you could tell from what he did that he wasn't exactly the most morally sound individual, but holy shit. You could tell how fucking mentally ill this motherfucker is. Oh, fuck. Where was I? No girl ever wanna fuck you. Where the hell is it? There it is. Okay. Oh my god. At the beginning of summer, I finally received my driver's license. I had to take the driving test twice before I passed it. The first time, I took it at the Winnetka DMV, and I made a few mistakes at the end which caused me to fail it. After taking some lessons that my mother arranged for me, I gave the driving... Oh, excuse me. I gave the driving test another try at the Thousand Oaks DMV. This area was much easier to navigate around, so I managed to closely pass the test. Do you think Chris Chan and Elliot would be friends? Okay. No, Elliot would see Chris Chan as way beneath him. No, there's a difference here. Chris Chan, he wasn't able to make friends because he was severely autistic to the point where he could not even function, and he had so much trouble in social situations that the only people he could make friends with were really just out to troll him or extort money. But Elliot Rodger is a raging narcissist who would think that people like Chris Chan would be beneath him. So no, I don't think they would be friends. In fact, I think Elliot would be making fun of Chris Chan, regardless of the fact that Chris Chan has had more success in his life than Elliot. But, with the bar already set that low. Because, at least Chris Chan lost his virginity. Sure, it was to a hooker, but regardless. But, yeah, I'm not even going to bring up the thing he did with Barb. But, yeah, Chris Chan actually did lose his virginity before he did that thing with his mother. But, yeah, yeah, it was with a prostitute. But enough about Chris Chan. That's for another time. Once my official driver's license came in the mail, my mother told me some good news. She received a new car from Jack, which meant that she could give her older car to me. Now I had a car of my own to drive. To be able to drive to any place I wanted to go provided me with a new sense of freedom that I never felt before. I felt more like an adult rather than a kid. I realized that I could start college again now that I had the ability to drive there. Okay, so she refuses to marry the guy, but she's fine accepting a car as a gift out of him. I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke N-words. In the words of Kanye West, I ain't saying she a gold digger. I registered for a summer class at Moore Park College. I read about Moore Park College online and found out that it was a much better option than Pierce College. My mother and I drove up there to take a look. The campus was smaller in scale and more aesthetically pleasing. It was located in the town of Moore Park, in a gorgeous mountain area near Thousand Oaks. I also saw a lot more beautiful girls there than I ever saw at Pierce. Everywhere I looked, I saw beautiful blonde girls walking around. This college was just right for me. In the days leading up to my first day at Moore Park, I felt a renewed sense of hope. A new college provided a new start, and this college looked perfect in every way. I had the hope that I could make it there, that I could make friends, meet some girls, and eventually find a pretty girl to be my girlfriend. I pictured her in my mind all the time. Her cascading blonde hair, her beautiful face, her sensual body, everything. Yeah, notice how personality's never brought up once and it's all physical appearance shit. But yeah, I wonder why he couldn't get a girlfriend. I imagined us walking hand in hand through the college, looking at the magnificent view of the mountains in the distance as the sun sets behind them. That would be heaven. That was what I wanted in life. Every single hate-fueled ideal, worldview, and philosophy I created in the past was a result of not being able to do that. Oh wait, regarding your Christian and Elliot comment, I do have one more thing to say about that. There is another big difference between Chris Chan and Elliot Rodger. You can actually feel a little bit bad for Chris Chan. Because you know that his way of life, that didn't fall out of the sky. There's only so much you can fucking take before... Like, he endured years of online trolling, and some of that shit was really fucking bad. Like, I'm not saying that Chris Chan, like, I'm not excusing anything he did, but I'm saying it's a lot easier to feel sympathy for Chris Chan. With Elliot, though, there is no fucking sympathy here. None. Considering that he killed people. He fucking killed 6 people. Before being a fucking coward and turning the gun onto himself. Why? Because he could never be fucked to ask a girl out on a date. You know what? I was saving this for the end, but fuck it. I'm going to say it now. Elliot was never rejected. Not once. To be rejected, that would require you to fucking ask somebody out. He was too pussy to do that. Not once did he ever approach somebody and ask them out. He always expected them to come to him. I was saving this for the end, but I had to say that now. Fuck that. He was never rejected, as much as he says that he was. I was rejected by the world. You were never rejected once! Fuck you! I got actually angry there. I got, like, actually fucking angry there. Let's calm down a bit. Look, it's all right. He's in hell now where he belongs. Let's just calm down. You scared me. Yeah, I got a bit heated there. Sorry about that. I got a bit fucking heated, but just thinking about everything, it just makes me angry how this bullshit kept happening without the slightest ounce of self-awareness. 6 people died for nothing, as you're going to find out later on. All right, now, where was I? I imagined us walking hand in hand through the college, looking at the magnificent view of the mountains in the distance as the sun sets behind them. That would be heaven. That was what I wanted in life. Every single hate-fueled ideal, worldview, and philosophy I created in the past was a result of not being able to do that. I was very optimistic on the first day. When I walked onto the campus, I breathed in the fresh mountain air and admired my surroundings. I was in a new environment with lots of new possibilities. The class I took was a world history class, and it began on a good note. The class was well structured and the teacher was entertaining. After the class ended, I walked around the college for an hour to explore and ponder over how I can set my life right. Once again, I dared to hope that there could be a good future for me. My renewed hope gave me solace for a few days, but it did not last. Moore Park soon became a place of loneliness and despair, just like any other place I've attempted to thrive in. The breaking point was when I saw good-looking couples walking along the area where I dreamed of walking with a girlfriend. To watch another boy experience it with a beautiful girl who should be mine was a living hell. I constantly asked myself what I did wrong in life to be unable to have a beautiful girlfriend. It was no better inside the classroom. There was this one obnoxious jock with a buzz cut who was taking the class with his gorgeous girlfriend. They always sat next to each other, talking and touching each other with affection. Every day I had to see this, and my envy grew and grew. I constantly glared at them with raw hatred. What did I do wrong that he did right? I yelled out to the universe on the way home. Why does he deserve the love of a beautiful girl and not me? Why do girls hate me so? Questions and questions. All I could do was question why I was suffering so much injustice in life. Why do girls hate me so? How the fuck do you know? You never had the balls to ask them, you fucking pussy. My mother one day told me that I should become a writer because I had some talent in writing. That was strange to hear. For my whole life, I was never talented at anything I tried. I was too physically weak to play sports with other boys when I was little. I never became professional at skateboarding, no matter how much I practiced. And I was never that skilled at any video games I played, even World of Warcraft. Steve and Mark were able to play their characters more skillfully than I ever did, and they started the game much later than me. Yeah, I feel like a bit of an air bubble in my throat there. I'm good. Deep down, I've always known that I had no talents, and I've always tried not to think about it. Indeed, it was strange to hear my mother say that I could become a talented writer, but it did give me an idea. I started to wonder if I actually could become a writer. I could write an epic fantasy story that will be made into a movie, and I will become rich from it. Being rich will definitely make me attractive enough to have a beautiful girlfriend. It was not impossible, and working towards it would give me something to live for. I mulled it over in my mind for a while. You know what he could have done? Here's the only way that Elliot Rodger could have had a good outcome for his life instead of, what happened. He wrote down this entire manifesto as per usual, but instead of publishing it, instead of sending it to random people, then going on a mass shooting, what he could have done, label it as fiction, and then send it out to a publishing company, get it published as a book, make millions. That's what he could have done. You know, with the writing thing, I kind of wish he did, because that way 6 people wouldn't have had their lives pointlessly taken. I could write an epic fantasy story that would be made into a movie, and I will become rich from it. Being rich will definitely make me attractive enough to have a beautiful girlfriend. Yeah, you can see his complex thought process here. Fucking moron. It was not impossible, and working towards it would give me something to live for. I mulled it over in my mind for a while. We went to Jack's beach house in Malibu to spend a couple of nights again. My mother called me on the phone to tell me the plan while I was at college. It was a lonely and depressing day at school, and I was glad to be able to have some respite, I don't know, at the lovely beach house. I immediately drove there from Moorpark after my class was finished. Moorpark had a few of her friends over, and she bought a lot of delicious food. After stuffing myself with Mother had a few of her friends over. Jesus Christ. After stuffing myself with portions from every dish and drinking multiple glasses of wine, I went on a long and peaceful walk on the beach, wishing that I had a girlfriend to walk beside me. Before I went to bed, I thought a lot about the possibility of becoming rich. If I was a millionaire and owned a house like the one I was spending that night in, I could have any girl I want. Being in that position would make up for all of the misery I've had to go through in the past. And making up for it is my most important goal in life. My one wish is to feel satisfied for the way my life is. I seriously started to consider working towards writing an epic story. I was always creating stories in my mind to fuel my fantasies. Usually those stories depicted someone like myself rising to power after a life of being treated unfairly by the world. I mentally examined all of the stories I had developed and focused on the few that I thought would become bestsellers. If I could get one of them made into a movie, I would definitely be a millionaire. It was the only solution to my problems. I saw myself as a highly intelligent and magnificent person who is meant for great things. This could be one of them. I spent the next couple of weeks focusing on writing for myself instead of working on my schoolwork. The class didn't give me much homework to do anyway. I wrote summaries for 3 different stories, and I think I showed 2 of them to my mother. She seemed to think that they would make good movies, and that increased my confidence. I either wanted to write a novel first, or go straight to making it a screenplay. I spent every afternoon for 2 weeks working on this goal. My time at college was miserable. I often cried on the way home because I was envious of so many couples walking around. I poured all of my energy into coming up with a way to make this goal work. My faith that I could write an epic story that would make me rich soon collapsed. I read so many articles online of the changes that a screenplay would be made into a movie. I also saw that most writers of even the highest budget films didn't make as much as I thought they did. Definitely not enough to live on for the rest of their life. I also thought, with a lot of despair, of the time that it would take to achieve such a goal. Most best-selling authors or screenwriters didn't become millionaires until they were well into their 40s or 50s. I didn't want to wait until I was 40 years old to lose my virginity. The thought of spending the next 20 years working hard every day for a chance to make $1 million or $2 million filled me with revulsion. By the time I'd become a millionaire from doing that, I wouldn't even be able to get hot young girls because I'd be too old. I mean, that didn't stop Jeff Epstein. I decided that writing was not my path to salvation, and I abandoned the idea completely. Of course, I would become tantalized with the idea a few more times in the future, but that would be due to the desperate false hope that I often create for myself. I couldn't stand seeing that damnable couple in my class anymore. I never understood what that pretty girl saw in her brute of a boyfriend. He never did anything to you. That guy was able to experience his college life with his beautiful girlfriend by his side while I was all alone. It made me feel so inferior. I had to watch them together every single day. The torture was unbearable. When I got home from college one day, I dropped my class in a rage. I didn't think about how my mother would react to me dropping the class. I knew she would be very disappointed, and I couldn't afford to have her be disappointed in me. I was relying on her for everything. What she gave to me, she could easily take away. I panicked and resolved to get a job in order to placate her. How much more is there? Okay. Once we get to the 19 years old section, I'm going to call it. After asking Tony, my social skills counselor, if I could get a job through the regional center, he called me back and told me that there was a job available for me. I didn't get much information about it, but I decided to sign up for it right then and there. After this was secure, I was comfortable enough to tell my mother that I dropped my class at Moore Park. I could have lied to her and told her that I never dropped the class, but at that time I was too scared to lie to her. I started a day of working at this new job. It was located in an office building that was connected to an airport in Los Angeles. To my horror and humiliation, the job turned out to be a menial custodial job, and I had to clean offices and even the bathrooms. There was no way I would ever degrade myself on such a level. I felt like utter shit from even considering working at such a place. I only worked for a few hours while I thought how to handle this foul situation, and on the next day I called to announce that I was quitting. That was the second and last job I would ever have. I only worked there for less than a day. After I quit, I fell into an even worse state of panic than I was in after I dropped my Moore Park class. I rapidly pestered myself with the ultimate question: what am I to do now? I called up Carl Champley to see if he had another job for me at his house. But he told me that his house was almost finished and there was literally no work for me to do there. I was doomed. I thought that if my mother found out that I quit, she would kick me out of her household. My mother was taking a vacation in Hawaii with my sister during this time. I had a few days by myself to relax and plot my next move. I concluded that going to college and enduring the sight of couples walking around was better than having to resort to working a low-class job somewhere, and I had to pick one of the two in order to placate my mother. College was also more beneficial because I could learn and educate myself through it. I called up my mother and cried to her on the phone, explaining to her why I quit the job that I signed up for, and asked her if she would give me another chance. I told her I will register for more classes at Moore Park and pour all of my energy into studying hard. I also told her that I will continue with working on my writing. To my relief, she was very understanding, and she told me she would continue to support me if I did this. The temporary pressure I had to face that summer was eased, but after thinking about it, I suppose that it was insignificant compared to the overall pressure that had been on my shoulders ever since I hit puberty. My struggle against a society that looks down upon me. Against the female gender for denying me sex and love, which you were never denied from them, by the way. Addison Altendorf's hurtful words kept haunting me all throughout the summer. I saw my future, and I saw only more bleak loneliness. I will never have sex. I will never have love. Girls deem me unworthy of it, I thought to myself over and over again. I cried every day when I imagined how much fun and pleasure other teenagers were having as I languished in despair. My 19th birthday passed by sullenly, and it caused me to feel even more defeated. 19 and still a virgin, I miserably proclaimed on that day. My father didn't even deign to give me a phone call. Instead, he sent me a letter wishing me happy birthday and telling me that he wanted me to apologize to Sumaya, which I refused to do. The laptop I received on my 17th birthday had become infected with viruses, so my mother bought me a new, even better laptop on my 19th birthday. Let me guess, porn. I chose one that can handle video games very well because I had just made the decision to start playing World of Warcraft again. I just couldn't handle the anguish in my life anymore. I needed a break, no matter how unhealthy and time-consuming WoW would be for me. And on that, we are going to leave it off for today. We are now 71 pages in, meaning we are over halfway through the manifesto. The whole thing's about 141 pages, so yeah, we're over halfway through. I didn't expect to actually end up legitimately fucking mad by this guy, but I was. So yeah, there were a couple of like I'd say parts maybe 3 and 4 or so were kind of boring, but it's really starting to pick up now. Yeah. So next stream, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I guess we'll all figure that out next time. Have a good day, y'all. Peace.